The apostles that Jesus had sent out to preach returned. They gathered around him and told him about all the things they had done and taught. Crowds of people were coming and going. Jesus and his followers did not even have time to eat. He said to them, "Come with me. We will go to a quiet place to be alone. Then we will get some rest."
Brilliant. Thanks, Oliver. Have a seat. We're picking up in the middle of a story. It's all about Jesus. And Jesus has been doing some amazing things. He heals sick people. He hangs out with lonely people and outcast people. He's calmed a storm with just one word. And even he rose a little girl from the dead. Here he is with his disciples, and crowds of people want to see him. Hey, let me get closer. I want to see. Let's find out what this Jesus is all about. Jesus knows that his followers are a bit tired. They need a sleep. So they're off to somewhere to find somewhere to have a little sleep. What happens next? Where's Ren?
So they went in a boat along to a place where there was no people, but many people saw them leave and recognized them. So people from all the town ran to the place where Jesus was going. They got there before Jesus arrived. When he landed, he saw a crowd waiting. Jesus felt sorry for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he taught them many things.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ren. Poor old Jesus, he's trying to get some rest, but everyone keeps following him everywhere. I don't know about you, but I'd have been kind of grumpy. Not Jesus, though. Did you hear what Ren said? Verse 34. Jesus saw the crowd, and he felt sorry for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Oh, funny image. We'll come back to that in a moment. Jesus is full of love and compassion. That's what he's like. He sees a crowd of hungry, needy people, and his heart is moved to them. He's never too busy. He's never out of the office. He's never away on holiday or in a meeting or still at work. Jesus has compassion. Right, let's find out what happens next. Where's Eva? You're brilliant.
It was now late in the day. Jesus' followers came to him and said, "No one lives in this place, and it is already very late. Send the people away. They need to go to the towns and farms and around here to buy some food to eat." But Jesus answered, "You give them food to eat." They said to him, "We can't buy enough bread to feed all these people. We would all have to work a month to earn all that much bread." Jesus asked them, "How many loaves of bread do you have? Go and see." When they found out, they came to him and said, "We have 5 loaves and 2 fish."
Great reading. Imagine the scene. There are 5,000 people, actually 5,000 men, plus women and children, and they haven't got any food. A little bit later after the service, we're going to have a bring and share lunch, and we've asked people to bring some food. Now, what if everybody had forgotten, apart from Oscar? Does anyone have any food to share? Oh, brilliant. Can you bring it up to the front, please? Thank you. I'm glad someone remembered something for this packed lunch, this bring and share lunch. Is this it? Yeah. Just this small thing? What is it? 5 oat crackers, which you've eaten one. They come in packs of 6. They apparently and 2 uncooked fish fingers. And that's all you've got to share. It's not really going to go around. It's not going to feed this lot, is it? All right, well, thanks. We'll see what we can do. You can imagine, can't you? The disciples thinking, how's this going to help? Or the owner of the packed lunch. Hey, that's mine. What about me? It's not going to be enough. But Jesus does something amazing. Let's have Ophelia for the next reading.
Then Jesus said to the followers, "Tell all the people to sit in groups on the green grass." So all the people sat in groups. They sat in groups of 50, or of 100. Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish. He looked up to heaven and thanked God for the bread. He divided the bread and gave it to his followers to give to the people. Then he divided the 2 fish among them all. All the people ate, and they were satisfied. The followers filled 12 baskets with pieces of bread and fish that were not eaten. There were about 50,000 men who ate.
Thank you. It's an amazing miracle. Now, I need some helpers. I think 4 maybe, or 5 helpers to come to the front if you want to. I'm just going to do something with this packed lunch and just sort of spread it out. I've tried to put it in these baskets. So what I'd like you to do is, please, can you go and give every single person in the church 1 yellow piece of paper and 1 blue piece of paper as well. Okay, off you go. There's probably a few too many people. If that's okay, someone can help. Ready? Ready? Okay, everyone in the church, 1 yellow piece of paper and 1 blue piece of paper as well. It is an amazing miracle. From nothing, Jesus feeds 5,000 people and all the hangers-on and plus ones and kids and grannies. He doesn't have any fields or wheat or grain or flour or water or yeast. He doesn't have a sieving machine or a brushing machine or a milling machine or what even is a plan sifting machine? Or a cleaning machine or a packing machine? He makes something from nothing. He just prays and the hunger is gone. And it's so over the top. If you're following, just clock these 2 little details. Verse 42 of Mark chapter 6, it says, they all ate and they were satisfied, full to bursting. Oh, really? I can't have any more. I'm stuffed. And verse 43 as well. When they finished, there were 12 basketfuls of broken bread and pieces of fish. I'm not very good at maths, but that doesn't make sense, does it? It's abundant provision. Has everybody got one? Has everyone got a piece of yellow paper and a piece of blue paper? I think some people over here might need some. I'm expecting there to be some leftovers. Otherwise, the illustration doesn't really work. Brilliant. You guys got some over there? Okay, not to worry if you don't have one. We'll keep going. One of the questions we're supposed to ask as we read a story like this is, who is this guy? He's full of love and compassion. He's overflowing with goodness and kindness. He feeds the hungry and gives them just what they need. And he has incredible power, the kind of power that could make the universe. Who is this man?
Then Jesus told his followers to get into the boat and go to Bethsaida on the other side of the lake. Jesus said that he would come later. He stayed there to tell the people they could go home. After sending them away, he went into the hill to pray. That night, the boat was in the middle of the lake. Jesus was alone on land. He saw the followers working hard to row the boat because the wind was blowing against them at some time between 3 and 6 o'clock in the morning. Jesus came to them, walking on the water. He continued walking until he was almost past the boat. But when his followers saw him walking on the water, they thought he was a ghost and cried out. They all saw him and were terrified. But Jesus spoke to them and said, "Have courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind became calm. The followers were greatly amazed. They had seen Jesus make more bread than 5 loaves, but they did not understand what it meant. Their minds were closed.
Brilliant. Shall we give all the people who've done some readings this morning a really big clap, because they did a super job. There were some really hard words in all those readings, so well done, everybody. Now, look, if you don't mind, I'd quite like 5 or 6 minutes just to speak to all the adults. So what I've got over there, in that little area with some chairs and things, is some activity booklets and some colouring and some crosswords and things like that, some word searches. Now, if you'd like to go over there, you're really, really welcome to do that. And you can go and play. Or you can just stay here and sit if you want to. It's absolutely fine. That second miracle that we just read, end of verse chapter 6, is another amazing miracle. Jesus walks on the water. But we haven't really got time to look at that. What I wanted to focus on was one verse, verse 52. They were completely amazed, for they hadn't understood about the bread. Their hearts were hardened. I don't know what you make of the story we've just heard, right? The feeding of the 5,000 is probably, let's be fair, one of the most famous stories in the Bible. It's a kiddie one. It's one you might remember from Sunday school or from services like this. But I wonder if it's also one of the most misunderstood stories in the Bible. The disciples didn't get it. Now, I guess that in a room like this, some people will be thinking, miracles, right? Miracles just don't happen. I don't think things like that are possible. So maybe there's some nice moral lesson we're supposed to learn from the story instead. Some people do this. You may have heard this kind of understanding of the feeding of the 5,000. People squeeze out all the wonder and turn it into a moral about sharing what we've got. So the little boy shares his packed lunch, and all that encourages everybody else who've just been their packed lunches are still there, to sort of share as well. And the moral of the story is be nice. It's kind of cute and inoffensive, and we all go home and think, yeah, fine, and then nothing happens. But actually, that's not at all what Mark chapter 6 says. In fact, it doesn't even mention a little boy. Mark's gospel, this biography of Jesus' life, is claiming to be an eyewitness account of stuff that actually happened, not a made-up moralistic fable. And it's interesting, even the first century non-Christian sources talk about Jesus' miracles. There's one first century historian who says Jesus was a doer of startling deeds. I mean, definitely this is a startling deed. You may have questions about whether or not it's all possible. Fair enough. But at least understand the claim. The claim is that this actually did happen. And at the time he was writing, there would have been 5,000 plus other witnesses to go check it out. So the question for us is, what does it actually mean? I want to think really briefly about just 2 images. The first is that image of the sheep that came up in the reading. Verse 34, Jesus sees the crowd. He feels sorry for them because they're like sheep without a shepherd. It's quite a strong metaphor. Sheep without shepherds are in danger. They're lost. There was this article in 2005 on the BBC website, a kind of ridiculous article, about a herd of sheep in Turkey that just all plummeted off a cliff to their death. It said, the chain reaction started when one sheep went over the cliff, enticing nearly 1,500 other sheep to follow. According to local sources, 450 of them died. Jesus is saying that human beings are sometimes a bit like that. We're made for a relationship with God. He's the good shepherd. Life with him is flourishing. It's life as it's meant to be lived. Like sheep without a shepherd, describes the condition of the human soul. Each one of us turned away from him, lost, leaderless, and following the crowd. Or to switch up the metaphor, to move to the second metaphor. The first was sheep. The second's obviously bread, isn't it? For ancient people, bread meant loads more than it does for us. It's the staple food. You have no bread, you have no life. And it's true even now. Even the best meals don't fill us up forever. A few hours later, we need more food. We're like a phone that needs to be constantly plugged in to a charger, filled up from the outside. And according to Jesus, our sometimes full but soon to be empty stomachs are a picture of our sometimes full but soon to be empty souls. Our hunger pangs and empty bellies mirror the ache we have deep down for something more, to be satisfied. We're designed for a relationship with the God of the universe, but we try and fill our empty souls with all sorts of other things that cannot actually fill us up. I've got a quote. No one describes this, I think, better than the 20th century writer C.S. Lewis. You know, the one who wrote all the Narnia books? Most people, he says, if they have really learned to look into their own hearts, would know that they do want, and want acutely, something that cannot be had in this world. There are all sorts of things in this world that offer to give it to you, but they never quite keep their promise. The longings which arise in us when we first fall in love, or first think of some foreign country, or first take up some subject that excites us. Our longings which no marriage, no travel, no learning can really satisfy. I'm not now speaking of what would be ordinarily called successful marriages or holidays or learned careers. I'm speaking of the best possible ones. This is the key bit. There was something we grasped at in that first moment of longing which just fades away in the reality. I think everyone knows what I mean. Do you know what he means? Can you relate to that? You think, if I just had this, then my life would be sorted. And we reach out and we grab it, and the hunger's still there. It could be anything, right? It could be our career, or shopping, or a life of adventure, or money, or family, or the success of our kids, or whatever. You try and put anything in the middle of that place that's originally designed for God, it's going to rattle around. It's going to be too big, too small. And the thing is, this is a universal problem. Just read any celebrity biography, or look at the most successful people in any sphere. Does success endure? Doesn't it start to eventually stink? I wonder actually whether that's why there is so much inequality in our world. Because if what you've got doesn't fill you up, you reach after more. We all have a hunger. But Jesus has compassion on the crowd. Last little thing. There's a random detail in verse 39. It says, chapter 6, verse 39, Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. Now, that is a weird detail in a story like this. Everybody knows that grass is green. Why does Jesus emphasize that? Well, he wants to make a connection to a very famous chapter from the Old Testament. It's up on the screen. Psalm 23, you may have heard of it. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green, there's the connection, pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. What's this story actually about? It did happen. But it's showing us that the claim that Jesus makes is that he is the one person who can give us the one thing that we desperately need. He forgives our sin and offers refreshment for the soul. In him alone, that's the claim, is full satisfaction. As one ancient Christian writer puts it, our hearts are restless until they find their rest in him. Look, thanks for listening. Don't dismiss this as some kiddie moralistic tale about sharing. Of course, it's a good thing to share, right? And it turns out that being satisfied in Jesus actually makes people very generous. But the miracle is not about what we can offer him. It's about what he offers us. Jesus says, I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never grow hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty.